In a world where everything's possible because code is what's ruling it all, the limiting factor becomes creativity.
That mindset leads to your mission.
AR, VR, AI, DeFi, NFTs, and whatever else is all aimed at the same thing, shaping the future of how we connect digitally.
You've been taking a lot of risks.
Being at risk doesn't mean a lot.
A lot of times.
You're gonna bounce back regardless.
In your life.
I operate under the burn the boat mentality.
And in your career.
Whatever situation you put me, I will do 1,000% to make sure that I can get to where I wanna go.
Diego, welcome to Unmatched.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked. It's been a minute. I've been trying to make this happen, and here we are.
I know. And in honor of you being here on the podcast, as you can see, I'm wearing pink. You're bringing your pink beanie. So we're all set. I'm really excited.
Let's go. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Let's go. So, Diego, let's just start with the basics. Who are you and what do you do?
So Diego Borgo, 34 years old, coming straight from Brazil. Left the country about 10 years ago. Been roaming around Vancouver, in Canada, Austria, Germany, living in Portugal now. I consult brands in how they can take advantage of Web3 and immersive experience, immersive worlds, Metaverse, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I help them trying to navigate that new world, and I've been busy in that space for about 2 years now, helping them navigate, finding the ins and outs, finding the real opportunities, how to bypass the hype and the craziness that happens within such an early stage of a new tech that there's a lot of people excited about.
And you know what, we're going to get to that. There's a lot I want to ask you about Web3 because I've been following you for the last 2 years, more or less, in your journey in Web3 as well. So we're going to have time to dive into that. But one thing that I really love about your story, and I would like you to take a few minutes to tell us about, is how many times you've pivoted in your life and in your career. And if you can take us a little bit back to what it took for you to get to where you are today, I think our audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think pivoting is an interesting word. Like I consider myself a person that really works hard and hustles his way out and through whatever is necessary and needed. I think that's a natural skill that I've developed coming from where I come from my background, from sort of like where my family come from. We came from nothing back in Brazil, and just seeing my dad working and getting us, new opportunities or education. He did an MBA when he was 45, right? Because he couldn't do before. And for me, that's sort of like what drives me, sort of like the work and the work ethics and sort of like the hustle, not because of the money, not because of fame, not because of none of it, is literally because of freedom. I believe that, financial freedom is what is going to give you freedom of choice, which for me is the ultimate pinnacle, right? I'm not doing any of what I do because of the Lambo. I'm not doing any of what I do because of the yacht. I just truly strongly believe in freedom of choice. And for me, chasing freedom of choice is what I've been doing when I started working. I started working when I was 16 years old in an agency back in Brazil, where we already had big clients, right? I was working with Samsung, with Microsoft, with Warner Bros., helping them to see the opportunities within gaming, helping them to sort of like seize the opportunities within that sort of like new idea of esports. And I've been in marketing, branding, and digital strategies since then, but the sort of like the sectors or industries that I've been applying that to has been changing over and over and over and over, right? So back then was gaming, and esports, and then became entertainment, and then became the industry. So industry 4.0 is something that I've been working, in 15, 16, 17. And then I got really deep into blockchain, and that got me really excited. I was like, holy shit, like what is marketing for blockchain, right? What is marketing, what is branding for blockchain? And I tried to get organizations to enter that space and see the opportunities as well. But, back there was really difficult because it was very focused on the sort of like on the back end and not the sexy things, right? And then afterwards was NFTs, Metaverse, Web3. And even within that niche, within those 2 years, I've done a lot of pivots in mindset as well. So I think that sort of like resilience of always trying to find my way of analyzing what's happening and adding value to what's happening aimed at upcoming culture through upcoming technologies. That's what I've been doing, most of my life.
I love that part of your story because we have that in common, by the way. I come from Eastern Europe, from Romania, and it's been quite a journey as well for me to get to where I am today. And I think it's always based on taking some kind of risks, right? And you've been taking a lot of risks a lot of times. Sometimes when maybe those risks were a bit too high, but you still took them, especially when you left a huge company that you were affiliated with, and then decided to move to Portugal and start a whole new life and bet on yourself and start your own sort of thing within the metaverse. Where do you think you would have been if you wouldn't have made that decision, if you wouldn't have taken that huge risk that you took?
In general, because I've been doing that my
In
whole
general,
life.
I know, but I mean, I guess that was one of the pivotal
Yeah.
moments, right? That propelled you to where you
Yeah.
are right now. And in general, I think you've been someone that has, consistently taken
Yeah.
huge risks all the
Yeah.
time. Where do you think that gap would have been?
I think, like from childhood and the people I grow up with, a lot of them are in jail, a lot of them are dead, right? And my
Yeah.
dad putting
Oh,
me into a system of education that, he worked really hard to be able to afford. That gave me the chances to see the world differently. But I kept sort of like that essence of coming for nothing, which empowers you to always strive for more. And I think that has helped me sort of like taking those decisions and moving forward, right? So I think that either or of the beginning, what I said might have been the case. But I'm a strong believer that, like things come for good causes and the way that my parents raised me and the opportunities they've giving me is something that I don't take for granted. So every time I'm looking to that and remember back in the day how things were when I was a child, and that's sort of like what also gives me sort of like that the move, like take risks. Like when you come from nothing, taking risks or being at risk doesn't mean a lot, because you know that if you would go back to where you came from, you're going to bounce back regardless, because you did once, you can do twice, you can do three times, and so on. So I think it's not necessarily easier because a lot of people don't do it, but I think for me it was always easier to think like, oh yeah, like if I move to Germany where there's so many layers of safety, security, prosperity and opportunities, what are the chances of like me not being able to, either overperform or to build whatever I want or to chase the dreams I have? Like I know that in whatever situation you put me, I will do 1,000% to make sure that I can get to where I want to go, and I think that element of risk is fundamental for me. I say a lot that I operate under the burn the boat mentality, right? So if you think about the analogy, it's basically, it's obviously in history, you see that in Sun Tzu's book as well, and other other books have talked about it. So I didn't make it up, or I came up with it, but the essence of that is, if you were setting yourself to a fight or to the war or to a new challenge, you bring all you have into that island. Everybody descends on the island. You set the boat on fire to show that there is no way back, if not winning or moving forward, right? So that's what I do. There are stages in my life that I get to a point that I'm like, listen, I hit the ceiling of learning. I hit the ceiling of the best I could do within this phase of my life. And now it's time to burn the boats and go somewhere else. And this last change where I left Adidas after 4 years of consulting the brand, after that being my main revenue stream, because I was working quite a lot with the brand from a consultancy perspective, after have helped shaping and landing into the metaverse, which in essence alongside with Nike was what brought a lot of brands interest within Web3 as well. And I just needed to burn the boat and do my own things. So I moved to Portugal. My son was 6 months old. I didn't had any client upcoming. I didn't leave with another hand on something else, and we just came over here, bought a house, and say we're gonna make it happen. Now you gotta need to pay that house. So let's work and let's do the best we can. So I operate under that method. I understand that for a lot of people that might be extremely overwhelming and potentially even dangerous for them from a mindfulness perspective. But I just don't know better. I don't know anything else. If I don't operate on that level, I just cannot do my best.
It's almost like if you have a plan B, your plan
A
A will
hundred
never
percent.
work, right? So that's a little bit the mentality, which I completely agree. And what is interesting is that that mindset leads to your mission, which I'm going to read right now, which is to drive mainstream adoption of blockchain and Web3 technologies. So the question here is, how are you planning to do that? And also why? Why did you take on that huge mission upon yourself in the first place?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that one of the most fundamental decentralization aspects that this new decentralized technology brings to the table is the decentralization of distribution of wealth, right? Today, you don't have to be in New York to make it in finance. You don't have to be in Paris to make it in fashion. You don't have to be in San Francisco to make it in tech. And I think that Corona has sort of like brought that freedom from a remote working perspective. But one of the first new transformations of technology that we are seeing in this new phase, which we are all living in, has been sort of like adoption of Web3 that came, throughout that period. So for me, the why is imagine if I can play a fundamental role in shaping the new way on how people will experience the internet or the new evolution of how people experience the web and connect with each other. If I can play a small role within that, it's going to be already huge because I can leave a legacy behind. But most importantly than that, and then me, is imagine if I can help others doing that on the way, and imagine how many people you could potentially impact positively to take opportunity of that. Imagine if I would be telling something that I know super well in a moment that's extremely early, and you pick on that and build a business or start a career or move to a different place or do whatever you want because you're passionate about that, and your life gets better and better and better because this is going to keep growing and the opportunities are huge and you're taking advantage of those opportunities. How humbling is for someone to be able to just give a little push when people are looking for that transformation. So that's what I set myself for. That's why I did the masterclass as well. And that's why I do a lot of the content I do. That's why I take the time to talk with a lot of people. That's why I do podcasts. A lot of that's connected to that, just like get someone else to see what I have seen. And hopefully if they are interested on that, they can go down that path, which, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be a messy roller coaster, but there is a likelihood that this can be transformational for people's life, and I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of like the personal motive. And the tool or the platform I've chosen to do that is big brands, because you can do that at scale, right? You can tap into millions and hundreds of millions of people through brands platforms. And if you hopefully help them succeeding on their journey, the impact is much larger than doing a project or working with a tech company or doing something on the back end. So that's kind of like the way I set myself to this mission, and the sort of like the tools I choose to use it.
Let's just get into it a little bit. Where does this metaverse stand today? Because we've seen 2021 huge peak. Everyone was into it. It was the hot new topic of the day. Every single brand was, thinking about it, trying to launch something. There wasn't much strategizing, I guess, around it. And then 2022 sort of like brought it to a little bit of a halt. And now everyone says it's kind of dead. But is it dead though? Because I feel that with the metaverse being there in the, Web3 technology, better said, in the background plus AI, it doesn't seem like it's dead at all. It seems like it's latent and it's waiting for things to take shape and sort of like connect again with whatever comes in terms of platforms and technology and so on, and people's thinking and brands thinking of how to use it. But from your perspective, from where you stand, and from like actually working with so many different brands in different industries on this, what's your take on where it is today?
It's that. I think we need to find something else to do. I'm looking and I'm applying in case there is something else for me to do. I'll be down to take the chance, you know.
I can see that. I can see
No,
that.
it's funny, you know, because I think that we are living in a society that are two things that are getting more and more extreme. One is the headlines, the attention economy, where everybody wants to be at the center of attention, and a lot of times negativity obviously is what drives a lot of that. And the second thing is the cycle, right? Everybody wants that cycle to be shorter, faster. Now it's AI, and everybody's like, oh, and now ChatGPT. There's people talking that ChatGPT is getting worse now, and is potentially dead, and you know Bard has killed ChatGPT now. So I think it's all about that sort of like attention, and people just keep moving forward and changing cycles in that direction. So there's a lot of noise. I think that if you zoom out and simplify what's happening right now, which is a lot of the work I do, is if you think that Web3 is the next evolution of the internet and how we connect digitally as humans, and it's going to evolve and it's going to keep evolving past Web3, and it's going to be Web4, Web5, Web69, whatever, right? It's going to keep going forward. There's a couple things that are fundamental to understand. One is that you have blockchain as the backbone, right? Blockchain is what's enabling Web3 to be an evolution, to be the next stop within the evolution of the web. And then you have the interface, which, you know, we can call it metaverse, we can call it immersive experience, we can call it immersive web, we can call it, digital worlds, we can call it whatever the name is. Maybe the term metaverse, because of Meta and because all what happened within the last cycle, a lot of people have a bitter taste to that. Maybe call it something else. It doesn't matter. It's terminology, right? What matters is that you need to understand that once the web started, we had chat rooms as the only way that we connected with each other digitally. So MSN Messenger, ICQ, back there, we were connected just chatting to each other. A strange in a chat, no picture, just text, right? You don't know who's on the other side. You join like chat rooms. There's 300 people there talking to each other. And that's how we used to connect with each other. And then it evolved to, yes, we still text, but now we have video, now we have voice. And now it's evolving. Yes, we're still texting. Yes, we're going to still have video and voice, but now we're going to add layers of immersive experience. We're going to add avatars. We're going to add spatial worlds. We're going to add three-dimensional, environments on which we can connect with each other digitally. So if you see that being an evolution that's going alongside with Web3, right? Or even part of Web3, if you will, if you want to go down the terminology, that's the interface. And then you have the backbone being blockchain, and everything, absolutely everything in between, AR, VR, AI, DeFi, NFTs, and whatever else it's happening right now as an upcoming technology is all aimed at the same thing, shaping the future of how we connect digitally. So if you zoom out to that point of view, and you think that the metaverse is dead, blockchain is dead, AI is against blockchain, or AI is against NFT, you're just not paying attention. You just don't know enough what you're talking about, and that's what's happening at scale right now. So I think that a lot of my peers that are in the industry for so long, they just given up on having those conversations about, is it that? What is it? What is the definition? Because it's been the same since Second Life, since 2007. Those conversations were around, and look where we are at. Look how much we've evolved. Look at what Apple is doing now in January when they launched their products. And we're seeing other competitors coming along, and we're seeing AR taking more and more getting more and more highlighted within that. So for me, that's the way that's working, right? We keep evolving those different upcoming technologies on how we connect and interact with others digitally, and that's the next evolution. You cannot build a stack of technologies with one technology, right? Your phone is not made of one technology. The experience you have within your phone or your own computer is not made of one technology. It's exactly the same. is exactly the same. So I don't think there is nothing new there. I think there's just a lot of people trying to get attention in a space that, there's a lot of confusion still at.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, there's a lot of noise out there, and the same people who are saying that the metaverse is dead today, they had no clue in 2017 that there were a lot of people in that space. Or the people that are saying ChatGPT is dead now, they don't know that 30 years ago someone was doing their master thesis on AI, which is a guy that I had on my podcast a few episodes ago. So there you go. It's all about how much you know about the state of the world, and what you don't know, you don't know. So that's a little bit it. But to get to the next phase is, what do you think is the question that nobody asks about the metaverse today? The thing that in your mind is super clear that this is where it's at, and nobody's actually really talking about, or nobody's actually asking the right questions. Because here's the thing for me, as a marketeer, I've seen it all. I've worked for, like huge brands. I'm working for a big brand right now. And there's really just so much that you can do in terms of marketing activations and how to engage with consumers. You need to really take the next step and get to the next level where the experience becomes much more immersive. So in my mind as a marketeer, I'm super excited about seeing what's happening in Web3 and with the AI and how those things are going to come together, because that's the only way that brands, in my mind, are going to be able to stand out in the future and engage with consumers in a meaningful way, right? Not the basic tactics that we've known for years and years. What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think there's kind of like three things that I'm really excited about that I feel it's not covered a lot yet. I think that the first and the biggest of them is that a lot of people are just looking at the metaverse as a B2C play, whereas B2B is going to be 10, 100, 1,000 times bigger when it comes to impact on revenue, right? It's huge. I just made a post the other day about Siemens investment, in Erlangen, actually, funny enough, where they're putting €1 billion down into sort of like that, metaverse or whatever you want to call campus that they've been developing, and their partnership with NVIDIA and all of that, and how they're bringing, all those different upcoming technologies to help shaping the way on how the industry actually engages and interacts and products are created and so on. So I think that the focus on consumer first is obviously interesting, especially on the field we are at from a branding perspective. But I think that as soon as you zoom out for the possibilities within B2B is gigantic, right? Because the problems are there, because the lack of integration is there, because the tech is not there, because the opportunities are there, because the money's there. So there's a lot of motives on why, that sort of like industrial metaverse, or, whatever you want to call, is exciting. So I think that's one. I think that the second one is that, again, people tend to forget consumer behavior, right? If you think that the way we shop today, and let's get fashion as an example, just because we share the industry, that you go to either an application or a web page, and then you browse to photos, which a lot of times are shit, or a lot of times, the experience is very limited. And then you browse through it, and then you tap into something, and then you add to cart, and then you pay and check out, and you wait that to come to your home for you to actually have a feel on how the fabric could look like, on how you could combine with other things, on how that could look like outside or in the winter, in the summer, and so on. If you think that the way we shop today is the final destination, there is a big wake-up call there, because that's going to keep evolving, right? And we have obviously now AR filters that you can try on your foot, but it's still not there, right? Or you have like the sort of like the 360 that you can look around the product, or there's some products that have a super, special technology behind it that we're, creating enhanced content for. But still, it's not there. It's not at scale, and there's much more that can be done. And that's what I'm really excited about. Almost like that immersive web for e-commerce or i-commerce, whatever you want to call, immersive commerce. That's something I'm really excited about. That if you tell me that the metaverse, or again, immersive experience, or any of it is not the one that's going to sort of like shape the new way and the new behavior, especially for the next generation, I would say you are out of your mind, right? So for me, that's a second pillar. And sort of like the third pillar is a lot connected to to identity as well. I think that we we being so digitally being so attached to our physical identity has been something that at the beginning of social media and something has been obviously interesting and exciting because I want to be the guy that I am in sort of like in the physical world, exactly the same in the digital world, right? But we see more and more, people taking new ways of expressing themselves, not necessarily because they don't like who they are or because they don't identify with themselves. People just want to have fun a lot of times, or people just want to be different. People don't just want to express themselves differently, or maybe they want to do things that physically is not possible because of laws of physics, right? And now when you start looking into places and platforms like that, that becomes really exciting because in a world where everything's possible because there is no laws of physics, code is what's ruling it all. The limiting factor becomes creativity. So you literally can do whatever you want, be whoever you want, and all of that. And I find that to be quite exciting. And I think that especially within the new generations, and we are seeing a lot of that sort of like transition from the norm of self-expression or the way they identify themselves. I think that's going to be fundamental for them to have that opportunity of expressing themselves digitally in a manner that today is not necessarily possible. The tools we have today is still very limited for that, and I think that that demand is huge and is going to keep picking up.
I see all three pillars, and to me, the last one that you just mentioned is the most interesting one because it sort of aligns a little bit with this idea of Unmatch that we're talking on the podcast all the time, which is, like we tend to give away a lot of the control on our identity all the time because social norms, because laws of physics, whatever you want, and technology allows you to be present on different platforms right now. I mean, you are building your digital identity on several platforms at the same time. But if you take that one step further, where does your creativity take you and what can you actually achieve for yourself, taking back that control over your identity and how you portray yourself to the world? I think also the opportunities there are enormous for people in the space of personal branding, in the space of branding as such. How do you see that evolving if you take that one step further, in terms of how people can use those platforms to express themselves?
Yeah, I think a lot of people ask me, oh, so this whole new set of technologies is just for the big brands because you're just working for Fortune 500 because they have major budgets and a lot of people and a cool brand. You think it's just for them? And I say it's rather the opposite. I think that the more technology becomes accessible through scalability and price goes down, and minting an NFT 5 years ago was extremely complicated and difficult. Right now there's 1,000 platforms out there that you can do it for free, right? You don't need any technical knowledge. It's the same with websites, right? Remember building websites in 95 or 2000s was like the impossible thing to do. You need to find someone that's able to do it. Today you have Webflow and all those tools that you can do that in a second, right? Or even with AI now it's getting even crazier because you just literally need to prompt and then you get the code and you put the code and voila, the website's up. So I think that as technology scales in that sense, which always does and always will, that's where the opportunities become really interesting for entrepreneurs, for solopreneurs, for artists, for musicians, for the small shop in the corner, for the artist that has been creating art but never got a space or a platform, or an auction house was calling the artist to go there and display their artwork somewhere else, right? Now more than ever, if YouTube or Instagram have given the opportunity for people to just blow up because there are a lot of interest in what they're doing, those platforms is still very limited because YouTube is just video and Instagram, is static, and obviously there's the video element to that, but majority of it has been static to images, right? Now imagine you having like an entire immersive experience that you can do whatever you want. You can bring the people that are fans, the communities, the ones that care about what you have to do or what you're doing together, closer to you. As a musician, you don't need to be doing things with the labels anymore, depending on their distribution. You become the one that is distributing. That's the real DTC, right? You're going directly to your fans, to your customers. And you cut in the middleman, meaning you can keep a bigger margin, or you can have more creative freedom. And I think that also becomes a huge tool for that. In early 2 years ago, we talked a lot about NFTs being that tool for monetizing your work and for going directly to your community, for creating token gated experiences. And I think that within digital worlds, platforms, metaverse platforms, immersive experience platforms is going to give such a huge opportunity for creators to deepen the relationship, or to even create new meanings of self-expression with their audience, their customers, their fans, and just get closer to them, foster spaces for them to come together. And if we think that sort of like the creator economy is going down because obviously there is less reach within those platforms, or platforms are more and more centralized, so it's harder for them to be themselves, which a lot of times goes against certain rules, or they are canceled or whatever by those platforms. Like, I think this is going to reignite a lot of that, right? And that's also going to be interesting because, of course, you're going to have Meta as a centralized platform. You're going to have like hybrid situations like Sandbox and others, and you're going to have full decentralized platforms as well. That's going to be created on the sort of like on the principles of self-expression, or any type of sort of like you can be or do whatever you want as a creator. So I think that's what's going to be really exciting within that space too.
How do you look at the evolution of brand partnerships through that lens? Because one thing that is interesting to me as I look at the evolution of Web3 and what most of the brands have been putting out there is interesting that not a lot of them have been tapping into their, brand ambassadors a lot and using that, that asset in a way, and that access to provide more interactive, engagement with consumers. Is that sort of something that you see brands shying away from? Is that something that you see coming up in the future?
100%. I think that, again, right, if the artist can go directly to their community and fan base, and sort of like bring that into their own world, imagine what are the possibilities for brands, right? Again, I work with Adidas for 4 years, so I know that business better. Adidas has over 2,500, musicians, athletes, entertainers, artists signed under their brand as partners, and you don't see a lot happening in that space, right? When you think about 2,500, the power of what the brand can do through the lenses of their creators, their partners, their that sort of like inner circle of people that believe in the brand and that share the value and can echo messages and co-create and so on is huge. But it's complex as well to execute through contracts. There's a lot of Web2 technology on the way as well. One of the things when it comes to partnership that I'm really excited about is the current problems you have for partnerships when it comes to data integration in Web2 today, right? So when you think about, again, just because we're on the topic, Adidas and Peloton wanting to do a partnership, right? For me as a customer to go to Adidas website and then directly be redirected to a Peloton website or anything like that, and what happens in between for my experience to be smooth, it's extremely hard. Not let alone when I would say, okay, I am part of Creators Club, or any membership program you are, and I want to prove this to other brands that are partners of that brand, in this example, Peloton, to be able to foster certain types of perks or exclusive benefits or early access or personalized content, you name it. This within Web2 today is basically impossible because you have so many layers of the GDPR and personal information that you cannot cross, or you cannot sort of like get this database, send over the fans so that brand can get that database and personalize content. It's basically impossible, right? You have some exceptions here and there you can do, but it's a heavy lift, 6 to 8 months of work, many teams involved to be able to do that process, right? Now, when you think about Web3, which is interesting, you have smart contracts that can, literally integrate and talk to each other through simple API integrations. And because you were not necessarily transferring the data, but you rather just, enabling that connection to happen, all I just said becomes incredibly simple to do like that, right? And that's where you start fostering super interesting opportunities on partnerships, on collaborations. And that goes as well with that 2,500 people I talked before. Why not? If you prove me you've been to a Pharrell Williams concert, then you get early access to buy his next drop at Adidas.com. Like, it's a huge opportunity. You start again solving another problem that's really big within the fashion industry, or the luxury industry, if you will, which is scalpers, bots. When you have a limited supply of a drop, or a certain shoe or luxury item you want to sell, your fans are probably not the ones that are getting it. The scalpers are, and then they're going to sell on eBay, or the bots are, and then they're going to sell somewhere else, right? Now, if you can create proof of whatever, and those proofs can be cryptographic proofs, meaning they cannot be faked, and you can leverage those proofs of fandom or presence or membership tier, whatever it is, and you can use that as a gate to make the true fan get the hands on the product that you're creating for them. That's now a business solution or a business opportunity, or you're solving a problem that exists that a technology that's currently in place doesn't necessarily solve it. So I'm really excited about those type of things, because I think that we are past the experimentation phase. We are past the phase where, we're all trying this technology out. And because obviously AI has taken over a lot of the attention and innovation budgets, if you really want to make Web3, Metaverse, and all of that accelerate and people understand what it is, we need use case. We need to show what's possible, not talk about what's possible. And we need to solve real problems. We need to tap into real challenges and real opportunities that, yes, can be connected to brand and to sort of like fostering brand perception in the long term. But it should be something strong enough to display that we might be able to tap into a 1 billion business pillar that today doesn't exist. And that's where I'm spending a lot of my time to sort of like try to strategize and help brands to navigate through that sort of like new phase of Web3 as well.
So for anyone listening that maybe isn't working with a big brand and doesn't have all those, the marketing huge budget that big brands have, and they are thinking of launching a new fashion brand, let's say, using the metaverse and Web3 technology, how should they position themselves? Because for me, I think that's the key. Positioning is everything. Before you start thinking about any marketing execution and strategy, you think about positioning first. How would Web3 help me, as a founder of a fashion startup, coming up with a new concept, positioning myself as something completely new, out of the ordinary, something that consumers would want to come to and engage with, even if I don't have a huge budget?
Yeah, I mean,
to spend 100%. On marketing.
We're doing it right now, for example, with Evolve, which is a company that I'm involved with. It's a fashion brand that is born within this new upcoming technology, and it's aimed to sort of like disrupt a lot of the creative process within fashion, right? The Fabricant is another great example of a company that's doing a lot of that, right? Is digital only, and it's focused on how the creators and the sort of like the people that are co-creating the future of fashion together are taking a stake on the way, right? So I think that there are a couple models already out there that are obviously super early still within the industry, because the industry overall is super early. But I think that instead of starting with the technology as the differentiator factor or the key strategic point, you need to start with what you want to do and what problems you may face, or what challenges you may have, or what opportunities you may have that the current set of technologies that you're working with doesn't necessarily solve, right? So instead of starting from like, oh yeah, Web3 is cool, let's start with it, or oh well, Metaverse is cool, let's start with it. It's kind of like, what are you actually trying to achieve? And then reverse engineer and see if there's any other technology, because Web3 is not easy today to implement still, right? We are deep into it. We say we are early. We say it's getting better, but it's fucking hard, right? So if there is not a major factor on why Web3 technology should be the one for you to start your business with, then maybe you should do something else, or maybe you should use a different technology, right? So my recommendation will be start with the what you're trying to achieve, the why you're trying to do it. And then once that's fleshed out and you have certain different avenues on how you want to go about it, then you can start exploring the technology, right? If you're talking about immersive worlds, obviously, then you start already from the technology because you're talking about, okay, this is going to be a warning game, or this is going to be a skin, or this is going to be, something that people can sort of like wear on an avatar, for example. Then you already start a bit deeper in the technology. But I would not recommend starting, something just because Web3 is hot, or because Metaverse is hot, or because AI is hot, because then 6 months from now, something else is going to take over. And then what happens to your business? You need to pivot entirely to the new technology. So if the concept and the core of the idea is strong enough, regardless of the technology that's upcoming, it's going to be ways for you to fit in and also to sort of like rewrite the narrative of what you're trying to create.
Last question to you, Diego. You've had such an amazing journey so far. Ups and downs, twists and turns, lots of pivots. What's your biggest learning so far that you want to share?
My biggest learning: never be a dick. I think that's
That's
the
a
biggest
good one.
learn.
Where did that come from? Did you meet a lot of them?
No, it's rather the opposite. It's rather the opposite because I've met so many people in my life again, but in different positions and situations, that I'm always extremely grateful for not have that be a dick instinct on myself. That I'm always wondering, like, holy shit, imagine if I would have been a dick to that person, and then now we are neighbors, or now we work together, or now that person wants to hire me, or now is a business partner, whatever it is, right? I just day by day try to live more and more by that book, because you never know what's going to happen next. And most importantly, then whatever is going to happen next, you never know what people are going through. And once you start going through difficult times, you understand that everyone around you is going through difficult times as well, and you being a dick is just making it harder for them to go through it.
So if I will sum it up in a phrase, it would be burn the boat, but never burn the bridges.
You got
Right?
it.
I think that's a
It
good
is.
motto. And Diego, thank you so much for your time. And it was a great chat. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to speaking to
Thanks
you
for
again
having me.
soon.
I had a blast. Thank you.